cultural programmers, film programmers, museum curators, festival organizers. These are all people who are, think of themselves as alternative types, who are working against the mainstream cultures and so forth. So they are always looking for countercultural, oppositional artists, filmmakers, and so forth. So Iranian filmmakers naturally fit very well within that discourse. So and of course, Iranian government has had the brilliance of being in the news for the last 34 years for various reasons, and so you can tie any Iranian film to the last event or the last action that the Islamic Republic took, and as a result become famous on the quote string of some crappy thing that happened in Iran. But I think in general, Iranian films that have come abroad and have won awards, I think have deserved it. They perhaps came to the attention of the film exhibition community first because of the notoriety of the government. But the award, I think, was given to them in general, not because of they were anti-government, but because of the quality of the film.
سینما و سینماگر به عنوان فعال حقوق بشر.
And the role of the filmmaker as a human rights activist.
به عنوان مثال ما 3 میلیون افغانی در ایران داریم، 700,000 تا بچه دارن اینا که اینا 8 سال نمیتونستن برن مدرسه. من یه فیلمی ساختم به اسم الفبای افغان در دوره آقای خاتمی و به هیئت دولت آقای خاتمی نشون دادیم، موفق شدیم قانون رو به نفع بچه‌های افغانی عوض کنیم و یک روز در مدارس دادیم به بچه‌های افغانی باز شد، 500,000 بچه با یه فیلم مستند تونستن برن مدرسه و این نشون میده که چقدر سینما میتونه تغییر ایجاد کنه در جاهای معین. سینماگر دیگه اونی نیست که فقط سرگرم کرده، هی بهش نقش سپرده شده.
For example, we have over 3 million refugees inside Iran. They have over 700,000 children that cannot go to school, that could not go to school in Iran. I made a film about this situation. I took it to the cabinet of Mr. Khatami, ex-president of Iran. And I showed them that this is the situation. And then we changed the law inside the Iranian law, and they allow these children to go to school. So one day, 500,000 Afghan children went to school. So this shows how powerful cinema could be and the role of a filmmaker in that society could be. And we can talk about the filmmaker as a political activist or political.
در جامعه ایران احزاب به معنی واقعی وجود نداره و نقش اشخاص مهمتر از احزاب.
In Iranian society, there isn't a real different political party. So the role of individual is more important than the parties.
در سال 2009 اکثر هنرمندای ایران سعی کردن در انتخابات موضع بگیرن به نفع یک کاندیدا، نه به این معنا که این کاندیدا اینا حزبی هستند و این آدم متعلق به اون حزب است، بلکه تمام هنرمندا پشت یه آدم وایسادن، بلکه فکر می‌کردن این با این جریان میتونن استبداد رو تضمین کنن.
For example, in Iranian election in 2009, most of the Iranian artists tried to get involved and support one person inside the candidates, not to confirm that that person is exactly the best person for the society, or this is part of, or we have a different parties like it means in countries like Britain or here or other European countries. No, or they are in the same party. It meant like that they wanted to bring someone, and they thought that with these candidates amongst the others, they could change something and stand in front of the fascist regime and totalitarian regime inside of Iran.
اگر امروز سینما ایران تحت فشاره، بخشیش به خاطر این سینماگر به عنوان مبارز سیاسی.
If Iranian cinema is under pressure today, part of it is because of the filmmaker and its role as a political activist.
برای که کوتاه کنم، آخری سینماگر به عنوان یک رول مدل، یک الگوی اجتماعی.
To shorten my speech, and I would say the last point, which is the role of a filmmaker as a role model inside the society.
من در افغانستان که بودم از جوونا میپرسیدم که میخواین چی کار بشید. در شمال افغانستان همه میخواستن احمد شاه مسعود شن.
When I was in Afghanistan, I would ask the youngster, what is your dream? What do you want to be when you grow up? They all wanted to become Ahmad Shah Massoud.
میدونی چی میشه؟ نتیجهش این میشه که این نسل بعدی هم یه جنگ میکنه تا اینا به اون قهرمانی که میخواستن برسن.
The result of this way of thinking is like that the new generation also create war inside the society so they can become the hero of that war and they fulfill their dream.
شاید در کردستان اگر میپرسیدیم از یه عده‌ای میخواین چی کاره بشین، میخواستن کموله بشن یا دموکرات بشن قبل از بهمن غبادی.
If we ask the same question before in Kurdistan, maybe the people would say that the youngster would say that we wanted to become a part of the Komole or the Democrat Party before we had Bahman Ghobadi.
یا میخواستن پاسدار شن از اون طرف.
Or they wanted to become, or they wanted to become in a way a soldier or something.
ولی بعد از اسامه برمک در افغانستان خیلی هم خواستن برمک بشن.
But for example in Afghanistan, after the film Osama was made by Sadiq Barmak, many people wanted to become Sadiq Barmak.
بعد از بهمن غبادی خیلی هم میخوان بهمن غبادی بشن.
And today the dream of many people in Kurdistan is to become someone like Bahman Ghobadi.
من سلام سینما رو که می ساختم 5000 نفر با یه آگهی اومده بودن هنرپیشه شن و یه آمار سکرت گفت 100,000 جوون تمایل به بازیگر شدن و سینماگر شدن داشتن.
When I was when I gave the advertisement to make Salam Cinema, 5,000 people came to become the actor or actress in that film. A secret assessment had shown that over 100,000 people wanted to become actor or actresses inside the society at that day.
اول انقلاب همین 100,000 نفر می‌خواستن آخوند شن.
At the beginning of the revolution, the same 100,000 people wanted to become clerics or mullahs.
و آخرین جمله این که سینماگرای ایرانی رول مدل های جامعه ایران رو عوض کردن و با این رول مدل ها ما میتونیم یه آینده فرهنگی برای ایران.
At the end, what you can draw on this is that the Iranian filmmakers, they changed the view of the Iranian society, so they changed their role model inside the society. With this new role model, we could have a more cultural, a brighter future, a more cultural country later on.
I think the time is limited.
We hope that this kind of celebration try to change the attitude of the Norwegian society to all Iranians, because the situation in Iran is completely different with Norway. The government is maybe something different with the populations, and just try to change your point of view against some specific part of Iranian that they live in outside the country. They decided to go out that country because they have some problem, maybe with the government and maybe with some specific part of peoples. Thank you.
Jag ville inte komma hit för att jag var mitt i en produktion och jag regisserade och jag tycker om filmen och jag blev tvungen att komma hit, men jag är jätteglad här. Det är fantastiskt att vara här.
I'm very happy to be here.
Ja, kära vänner, så här var det. När jag lämnade Iran 1987 och i mitten av min karriär som skådespelare för teater och film
I left Iran in 1987 in the middle of my career as an actress in theater and film.
På grund av att jag protesterade mot kulturpolitik i teater och i film och fick massor av problem av herrarna som satt i makten.
Because I protested against the cultural politics of theater and film, and I got a lot of problems from the men who were in power.
Ja, och så lämnade jag Iran. Det kan man säga, flydde Iran, lämnade Iran, då vill jag inte leka med ord. Jag lämnade Iran och började bo och jobba i Sverige.
I left Iran and started living and working in Sweden.
Och jag minns en kvinnlig filmkritiker sa till mig: Susanne, varför ska du lämna Iran? Du är drottning, filmens drottning, Irans filmens drottning här. Om du åker till Sverige, du kommer att inte få en roll mer än, jag säger på tjänsteflicka, jag säger på persiska som alla vet, kolfatt, sa han. Och var här var drottning istället för att gå till Sverige och vara en nolla.
A film critic asked me, why do you want to move to Sweden when you are the queen of the Iranian cinema? If you move to Sweden, we will not get any parts as queen, but maybe just as a servant girl.
Fast jag var en queen utan tron.
But I was a queen without a throne.
Ja, jag ska säga, kära vänner, iransk film separerar sig inte av Irans samhälle.
Iranian cinema is not separate from Iranian society.
Vi lever i en mansdominerade samhälle. Och det är det som problemet.
We live in a male-dominated society, and that is the problem.
Och det speglar sig i våran film.
And this is mirrored in our cinema.
I våran tänkande, hur vi delar roller.
In the way we think, in the way we, the different roles we get.
Tack så jättemycket de filmare, regissörer, konstnärer som jag älskar och jag vill inte nämna att de vill bryta det här mönstret.
Thanks to all the artists, I don't want to mention their name, that they want to break these patterns.
Men i allmänheten är så här. Vi tänker sexuellt. Vi tänker himlen är mannen och jorden är kvinnan och bordet är maskulin och stolen är feminin och vad fan vet jag. Vi tänker sexuellt.
But in general, we think, in terms of gender, we think sexually. We think that, well, there were a lot of examples that the earth is the man and the earth is the sky. The table is what? Something? Masculine. Exactly. We think in these terms. We think sexually. Yes.
Ja, så här. Våran kroppsspråk, vårat sätt att prata. Kvinnor pratar så här för att det är bra. Och mannen pratar så här för att det passar sig. Det är manligt och det är kvinnligt. Att de rollerna, de gestalterna, allt är så definierat. Och rollerna har man gett till folk. Och det står i det som sitter här, präntat här, som inte har med religion att göra. Det jag vill säga.
We are given roles of what is defined as feminine and masculine roles in terms of the way we speak, the way we act, the way we perform, and these roles are not linked to religion necessarily, but they are here in our minds.
När jag spelade version, när jag spelade som de var förbjudna när jag kom till Sverige, när jag spelade Boshu, när jag spelade Death of Gastiger, jag säger på engelska, och balladen av Tara och andra mina filmer. De beskyllde mig att jag är manlig för att jag var stark i rollen. Jag är en kvinna som en människa som kan vara stark och svag personligen. Men rollerna som jag spelade, de var starka, självständiga kvinnor. De ansågs att vara manliga, kan ni tänka er?
When I played the roles in Bashu and in the Ballad of Tara, before I moved to Sweden, I was accused of being manly in the way I portrayed my roles, because my characters were strong, they were self-confident, but I was accused of being a man.
Ja, och de rollerna som de delar ut, kvinnan måste alltid vara mamma, hemmafru och offer, och offra sig.
In the usual roles in cinema, women has to be either a wife or a mother or a victim.
Och mannen är muskel och stark och rationell och tänker inte känslor och försörjer kvinnor, familjen och går ut.
A man is rational, he has muscles, and he is providing for his family.
Det är fel.
It is wrong.
Jag känner inte igen den här rollen som delades varken sig mig, min farmor, min moster, de kvinnor som jag känner och uppfostrat mig.
I don't recognize this role. I don't recognize it in myself, and I don't recognize it in my grandmother and in my mother and the women who have raised me.
Så här var det, iranska kvinnor. Jag säger det finns undantag, och det finns här har vi regissörer, och har vi också andra ställen regissörer som försökte bryta det här, och tack. Men i samhället, i iranska samhället och iranska film, det dominerar den här förkastliga rollen av mannen och av kvinnan. Det måste någonstans bli slut på det här.
There are exceptions, some of them are here, of directors who are trying to break this pattern, but the role of women in cinema in Iran in general are limited to these parts, and this has to end.
För att i iranska samhället, de kvinnor som går ut, kvinnans roll är mamma, god, hemmafru vid köket, ska vara där. Går hon ut och jobbar, är hon fnask, är hon en kvinna, gav för kvinna, det ska hon inte göra det egentligen, fast kvinnor gör det.
If the woman leaves the home and starts working, she's a prostitute, and she shouldn't be considered like that.
Ja, alltså det främsta rollen, det måste vara hemma och hemmafru. Och det att den här rollen beundras, hyllas. Främsta uppgift är en god mamma och en hemmafru.
The role of the good mother and the housewife is admired and is idolized.
För att mannens uppgift är ju att försörja familjen.
Because the man's role is to provide for the family.
Och om vi ska ändra någonting, då är inte så. Jag tänker så här, låt säga den här regimen i alla fall säger tack och hej och marscherar ut. Någon gång, låt säga. Men situationen kommer inte ändra sig. Jag, du och du, vi idag, vi är lite folk som är här. Ni måste försöka att tänka annorlunda. Vi lever i en annan tid. Vi lever inte i 1600-talet. Just det, 1600-talet.
1600-talet?
Ja, medeltiden. Det gör vi inte. Vi måste ändra den här bilden. Kommer den nästa regimen, då upprepas det som finns idag, samma problem.
We must change this pattern because we are not living in the 7th century. With the next regime, this will be repeated if we don't do anything.
Ja, idag om jag till det här, jag använder det här, då kan jag inte ha den där manlig kvinnlig roll. Idag använder jag mobiltelefon, idag använder jag dator. Jag kan inte ha den moderna teknologi och tänka gammalt. Det går inte ihop, och det är där som konflikter sitter.
I'm using modern technology. I'm using a mobile phone, microphone, computer, and we're in the modern time. And when I use these things, I can't be stuck with these old ways of thinking gender.
Ja. Precis det som handlar om. Och den här rollen, jag menar, det finns män som vill förändra, och de tänker inte manlig, de tänker mänsklig.
There are men who wants to make changes, and they're not thinking in a male way, they're thinking in a human way.
Och det finns kvinnor som tänker manlig och patriarkal.
and there are women who are thinking in a male patriarchal way.
Så att för att vara mänsklig, humanistisk, behöver man inte vara kvinnlig, manlig. Alltså där en man kan vara, som vi använder, feminist, och en kvinna kan vara patriarkalisk.
To be human and to be humanist, it doesn't depend of your gender. A man can be a feminist and a woman can be a patriarch.
Precis. Och sen i alla fall, jag kom till Sverige, jag började på en teater, diska och städa och allt möjligt. Därifrån började min karriär och sen lärde mig svenska så bra. Tror jag. Inte perfekt. Ingen människa är perfekt. Inte jag heller. Och så idag jobbar jag i Varsång i Sverige. Och som teaterskådespelare, som filmskådespelare, som teaterregissör och som filmregissör. Jag blev ingen nolla.
And then I moved to Sweden and I started working in the theater and I did other kinds of jobs as well. And then I learned the language now I'm working in the theater as an actress and in the film as an actress and as a director, and I did not become a nobody.
Så att jag tror på förändring. Om jag förändrar, börjar för mig själv, från mig själv, att tänka annorlunda, att sluta lägga problemet, projektera andra. Det är islamiska regimen nuvarandes fel. Det är Pahlavis fel. Det är de fel. Det är också lika mycket mitt fel. Jag måste tänka annorlunda, modernt.
I believe in change, but I believe that the change has to come from myself. That I should not blame that it's the Iranian regime's fault, but it's also my own fault, and I have a responsibility to make a change in a modern age.
Vi måste tänka på vårt språk. Persiska språk är manlig.
We have to think about our language. The Persian language is male.
Det är fullt av förnedring och nedsättande ord mot kvinnor. Fullt och skämt också om det.
It's filled with derogatory words about women.
Man ska förakta en man och säger så här, ja, du är mindre än kvinna.
When you're trying to despise a man, you say you are less than a woman.
Men jag säger på persiska för att det säger, ej azan kamtar. Ja, du som är mindre än så. Eller man ska säga en man är fantastisk, javan mar. Jag vet inte hur det ska översätta överhuvudtaget på svenska.
We don't know how to translate.
Javan mar, som ni vet. Det är fullt av det så här. Och när de griper Majid Tafreshi,
when they arrest Majid Tafreshi,
som har fått ett pris här i Norge förresten.
Who has received an award in Norway.
Ja, du vet va?
Yes.
Ja. Majid Tafreshi, prisa. Och sen, när han får han tar under det här upproret, iranska upproret 09, han tar en av studentledarna, så han tar en brinnande föreläsning för förändring och allt det här, och sen blir han arresterad.
During the rebellion in 2009, he does a very engaged speech in front of the students, and then he is arrested. In the university.
Och några dagar senare, det publiceras en bild av Majid i kvinnokläder.
A few days later, an image of Majid, a photo of him in women's clothing, is published.
Med slöja, med chador, med en handväska.
With the veil, with the chador, and with a lady's handbag.
Varför? För att förakta honom. Varför? För att ta ifrån honom hans heder och ära.
Why? To despise him and to take away his honor.
Detta sker.
This happens.
I ett land.
In a country.
Av en regim.
Of a regime.
Som påstår.
That claims.
Att förhöja och glorifiera kvinnans ställning.
They claim that they glorify the position of women.
Det här var väldigt sorgligt, men
this was very sad, But
Det som var fantastiskt. Några dagar senare, jag går på internet. Ja? Och där ser jag tusentals bilder av unga iranska män klädd i slöja. Och då säger jag, kvinnokläder och fantastiska humoristiska bilder. Ni måste gå och titta det. Och jag bara tänker, här har tagits ett stort steg mot ett rörelse för jämställdhet mellan män och kvinnor och en grundlig förändring i det iranska samhället just genom unga män.
the fantastic thing is that when you went on the internet a few days later, there were thousands of images of men in women's clothing, often comical, and this was fantastic because now I realized that a very profound change had taken place in the mindset, and this change was carried out by young men.
Ja, och det var bra. Så jag menar, vi måste granska oss själva. Vi måste verkligen titta på vår kultur som är fantastisk. Det är bra, vi behåller dem.
We have to look into ourselves, and we have to look into our culture, which is fantastic. So that which is good, we will keep.
Och de som är dåliga, snälla, kära ni, kritisera. Jag tror inte att kritisera de hos svenskar och norrmännen. De tycker att vi är hemska. Det gör de inte. Kom ut med det så dåliga.
That which is bad, we should criticize. We believe that the Norwegians and the Swedes think that we are bad, but they don't. So we shouldn't be afraid to criticize that which is bad.
Avslöja våra dåliga sidor inför hela världen.
Reveal the bad aspects of ourselves in front of the whole world.
Det är då som händer någonting.
That is when something will happen.
Säg inte att vi är fantastiska, för vi är det. Vi behöver inte säga det.
Don't say that we are fantastic, because we are. We don't have to say that.
Jag med. Och de dåliga, vi rensar bort, editera alla ord från persiska språket. Rensa bort alla dessa förnedrande, rasistiska ord från persiska språket.
We take away and edit out all the humiliating, terrible, racist, degrading words of the Persian language.
De rasistiska, förnedrande ord mot människor från andra etniska familjer, andra nationer. Alla ord mot joker, hittan och dittan. Man kan alltid ha humor. Man kan skämta om folk från Gilan, jag är därifrån. Men vi alla jämlika, vare sig... du säger det för.
All the words that... all the humiliating words that are linked to people from other nations, other ethnic groups.
Etnisk grupp, kvinnor.
Women.
Olika etniska grupp. Jag nämner inte för att det blir grupp. Etniska grupp. Alla det här måste rensas bort. Vi måste alltså, jag älskar svenska språket, fast jag vet folk där finns fullt av rasister också, och det är gulliga med fina människor också. Jag menar, när jag pratar svenska, det är helt annat språkkategori, måste jag säga. Men precis när jag pratar persiska, jag hör mig hur rasistisk jag själv blir det.
We have to cleanse out these words. When I speak Swedish, I recognize that this is totally different language, a totally different system. Although there are racists in Sweden as well, I notice that the way I talk is very different. But when I talk Persian, I notice that how racist I sound.
Jo, så att vi måste börja från oss själva, och sen kan vi säga den här regimen är så här, den här kan säga om vi vill komma till en förändring.
This must start within ourselves, and if we want to make a change.
För att jag lovar er, jag som står här och pratar som en brinnande människa för demokrati.
I who am standing here, who is talking, inflamed for democracy.
Ja, om ingenting förändras här i huvudet för mig och er.
If nothing has changed within the minds of me and you.
Jag kan inte lova om imorgon Väljer de mig till ledare av Iran?
I can't promise, but if they elect me as the leader of Iran,
Jag kan inte lova att jag inte blir en hemsk diktator.
I can't promise that I won't be a terrible dictator.
För att om ingenting här ändras.
Because if nothing inside here is changed.
Så, nu är jag klar.
Now I'm ready. Okay. Thanks. Now.
You know, censorship is something that evolves. That is not a permanent situation, and I think that's the most important thing to remember, is that censorship rules are oftentimes not written, and as a result, censorship is a negotiated process, and the worst aspect of it is actually when censorship becomes self-censorship. Look at it this way: after the revolution, there were 5 stages for the approval of a film. The idea, the film idea, the treatment, the script, the footage that you shot, the rough cut, and finally the final cut of the film had to be approved before the film saw the light of cinemas. In the 1990s, they removed a number of those approval stages, so that a filmmaker, an A-listed filmmaker, didn't have to get approval for his script, or for his scenario, or for his treatment, and for his rough cut. That, on the surface, that's a very liberal and open-minded idea, and that is true. But film is a very industrial and very capital-intensive industry. Which means that somebody has to spend, in the case of Iranians, at least $200,000 on a film. And if there is no prior approval of the film, and the only time that the film gets to be censored is at the very end, when the film is finished, you don't want to risk all of your money on that one approval. You become your own self-censor. You become more cautious. And as a result, you pull your punches in terms of what is allowed and what is not allowed. So you become your own censor. So that's the downside of the opening up of censorship laws. But I think that's nevertheless better than having all those previous rules that they had for censorship. So I think this is a better situation, and some people have internalized the censorship rules, and some people are able to violate it and make new films and yeah. So I think it's you can't say what is allowed and what is not allowed. What was not, you know, for example, what was not allowed at one time, which was, for example, direct eye contact between a male and a female in close-up. That is now completely allowed, and people do it. People didn't used to show touching between a male and a female, even if they were playing the role of husband and wife. And that still more or less exists. The hijab, the covering of the hair, was very strict, but now it is much less so. You see in films a lot more hair protruding from behind the scarf or from the front, and so forth. So all of these are, you know, the part of the way the society is negotiating with its government. And I guess that's one thing that can be said about the Islamic Republic, is that it is an authoritarian state that is willing to negotiate with its own subjects. And the subjects are also not taking no for an answer. They're also negotiating. So it's, in a way, this process of negotiation, cultural negotiation, you can see in every film. I think there are a lot of great Iranian filmmakers, and many of them actually predate the Islamic Republic. And this is the fact that a lot of people don't know or don't appreciate. Abbas Kiarostami, who is by all accounts the most famous Iranian filmmaker in the world, began filmmaking before the revolution during the Shah's time, and he has continued. Bahram Beyzai the same way, Masoud Kimiyai the same way, Amir Naderi the same, Parviz Kimiyavi the same, Daryush Mehjui. These are all filmmakers who are well known after the revolution, but they began their work before the revolution. My point is that the revolution was very disruptive, and it brought in a whole new cadre of filmmakers, but it also benefited from the continuity that these existing filmmakers, these great filmmakers, provided as backbone of Iranian cinema. So, in addition to these sort of pantheon of filmmakers who have spanned the two periods before and after the revolution, there are younger ones like the Makhmalbaf. I think are MOHSEN MAKHMALBAF in particular is a very authorial filmmaker. Argo is a film that basically presents the point of view of Americans involved, and as such it underplays the role of the Canadians and the point of view of the Canadians, who were the originators and the main contributors to this whole escape plan for the Americans out of Iran. So that's one thing, and not to say that, of course, the film doesn't represent Iranian points of views at all. And in terms of accuracy, there are some questions about certain scenes not ever having taken place. For example, the scenes of the escape from the airport, from Tehran, from Mehrabad airport, is apparently all fictionalized. It's not there wasn't this kind of escape by the skin of their teeth out of Iran. So the film has sensationalized and dramatized certain points, and this is, partly what fiction films do. It is a bit disingenuous for the Islamic government to object to the film, because they are the ones who perpetrated the illegal action to begin with, which is to take over the U.S. embassy illegally, and so I don't buy their criticism. They were not very noble in their action to begin with. The film is also plays into the negative stereotype of Iranians that evolved primarily after the hostage taking. So in a way, the Islamic Republic itself was responsible for the creation and the perpetration of this image of Iranians as hostage takers and intolerant, violent prone, fist in the air, death to America type of thing. And the film, of course, had a generous supply of those kinds of imagery. I have written extensively about the way the foreign media has exploited Iranians' image, but you have to admit also that Iranians themselves were partly responsible for the creation of that image to begin with, so I don't know what else to say. That's I think and I think the timing of the film also is interesting in a way. The film came out, Argo came out at the time that there was still a lot of talk in the air about whether Israel would attack Iran, or whether America would attack Iran, or some other attack of some sort was being contemplated. So the timing of the film was, I think, crucial in making the film famous or infamous, if you will. And I think it may have been also partly responsible for the heavy number of awards that it received at the Oscars. I don't think it was such a great film as such, but it was certainly, from an entertainment point of view, it was an entertaining film and also a self-satisfying film for Americans who now feel as though they are under attack by the world Muslims, and so in a way it was a self-affirming film for the Americans, and I think that's another reason why it was made and it was so heavily promoted and so forth. This hostage taking and the drama that it became, lasting for 444 days, was a second revolution after the main revolution, in the sense that it basically it was a second revolution that removed the moderate Muslims who were in power, like Bazargan and other people, and basically brought in the hardline, the radicals. And so, yes, I think many Iranians felt betrayed by this as well. Going back to what you were saying, the only part of the film, Argo, that actually in some ways represents the Iranian point of view is the first few minutes of the film, in which they sort of sketch out very quickly in kind of animated fashion the overthrow of Mohammad Mossadegh in 1950s and so forth. But they never make the connection between that event and why the hostages were taken to begin with. And this is not to support the hostage taking, but to say that when Jimmy Carter allowed the Shah to come to the U.S. for medical treatment, the news of his having cancer was something that he had kept secret, and so nobody believed that in fact he was sick, and that many Iranians, because of the 1953 coup against Mossadegh, were thinking, this is another coup that's being brewed, and therefore we need to stop it. And the hostage taking it was initiated. But the film doesn't follow that connection up after the beginning of the film, sorry. And I think that's another point, that's another missed opportunity on behalf of the film to be historical, to be historically accurate. It doesn't do that.
It's so hard to speak because I'm not the speaker. I'm a filmmaker because I choose the camera to say something. And really so hard. And just today, in the beginning, I wrote something to talk about the making movie inside Iran and outside of Iran. And I told myself I have to ask you you have to move me, and you have to ask me to say something, because in 4 years I'm in the under pressure of the silence, because I lived my love is cinema, and is here in Iran, in Kurdistan, and I cannot go back to make a movie in there, because the cinema is teamwork. It's not alone. I'm not the painting. I'm not the writer. I need the more pen from the more hands. I need the more eyes to be behind me and support me. And I lose these people, and it's so hard to talk about cinema without these people, without this feeling. And I'm following. I'm separate of my love, and I'm waiting to find her again to come back to me. And now we have a good contact, because I wake up again, and I find my feeling and find my energy as like when I start the cinema in Kurdistan. دیده نمی‌شدیم تو کردستان. خیلی محجور مونده بودیم در یک منطقه دور افتاده.
We were not visible in Kurdistan. We were just like living in an odd place, and nobody was basically noticing us.
چه قبل از انقلاب و چه بعد از انقلاب انگار یک منطقه جدا افتاده بودیم از ایران.
Both before and after the revolution, basically, Kurdistan was like an isolated area from the rest of the country.
و الان هم همین احساس هست برای مردم کرد.
And the Kurdish people continue to feel the same even today.
پس دوربین انتخاب کردم که یکم دیده بشم، حداقل تو محله‌ای که هستم، توی مسئولایی که اونجا بودن منو بتونن قبول کنن، بتونن بهشون بگم من چند تا ایده دارم، میخوام با دوربین در مورد این ایده‌ام حرف بزنم با شما.
So I chose camera basically to make local authorities listen to me and understand things that I want to communicate with them.
گوش شنوایی نبود.
and nobody was listening.
مدرسه‌ای نبود که بتونم درس بخونم اونجا توش سینما بخونم.
There was no school basically that you could study movie making.
و شروع کردم عصبانی شدم.
So I was angry, I was outraged.
و فهمیدم هر وقت عصبانی هستم میتونم کار خلاقه بکنم.
And then I learned that when I'm angry, then I can be creative.
اینو یه پوینتی که در موردش بیشتر حرف میزنم. عصبانیت. در عصبانیت فیلمسازی همیشه بهترین شکل ممکن بوده برای من.
I'm going to talk about it more. That when I'm angry, basically, I'm creative.
و پس عصبانی می‌کردن توی کردستان.
So they made me very angry in Kurdistan.
به خاطر خیلی چیزها.
Because of so many things.
به خاطر اینکه هیچ وقت کردی این مسئول کرد نداشتم که بتونم باهاش کردی حرف بزنم که بگم من اینو می‌خوام، من یه دوربین می‌خوام، من این موضوع رو دارم. و تو مجبور بودی با کسی حرف بزنی که از سرزمینت نبود، از اون منطقه نبود و همیشه احساس یک مرز می‌کردم بین من و مسئولایی که توی سرزمینم بودن.
None of the local authorities were from Kurdistan, and it was absolutely impossible for me to communicate with them, say that the problems that we have and what we need. It was like a barrier between us and them.
پس تلاش کردم فیلم کوتاه بسازم.
So I tried to start with short movies.
با مادرم، خواهرم،
with my mother, with my sister,
پسر صاحبخونم.
and the son of our landlord.
بیشتر به خاطر که ما رو بیرون نکنن از خونه، اجارهمون رو بالا
نبرن. So that they wouldn't kick us out of the house.
و موندیم، سالها موندیم.
And then we managed to basically to survive.
تا یه ذره تونستم پام از گلیم به خودم دراست کنم تو منطقه و بخوام بیام تهران و درس بخونم.
And then continued like that, so that I was a bit more known, and I could leave Kurdistan, come to the capital Tehran, and then basically start working there.
بعد کم کم دوربین شد برام یک اسلحه.
And camera turned as a weapon for me.
ولی خالی بود. یه اسلحه خالی داشتم و
می‌خواستم. It was not loaded, of course.
و می‌خواستم دنبال گلوله می‌گشتم.
And I was looking for ammunition.
آقای کیارستمی رو پیدا کردم.
Then I met Mr. Kiarostami.
یه گلوله بود برای من.
And he was basically my
آقای مخملباف.
And Mr.
فیلمسازای دیگه. و یاد گرفتم از این دوستان خیلی زیاد.
And I learned from others.
اصلا پر شد.
And my gun was loaded.
و برگشتم بعد فهمیدم چه اسلحه خوبیه دوربین. و میتونم الان قوی کار کنم و برگردم تو منطقه‌ام و در مورد مردمم حرف بزنم.
Then I learned that my camera is such a powerful weapon. Now I can return to Kurdistan again and work there and say what I want to say.
در مورد مردمی که سالها تو فیلم‌های ایرانی به عنوان قاچاقچی، آدمکش و خائن و خیلی چیزهای دیگه شناخته شدن.
And talk about the people who have been known for the rest of the society to be smugglers, murderers, and betrayers of the national unity.
که نبودن.
And that was absolutely not true.
آقای مخملباف اومد، آقای کیارستمی اومدن، این دوستان اومدن و این نگاه بدی که به کردستان بود از طریق فیلم‌ها این نگاه عوض شد.
Then came Mr. Makhmalbaf and Mr. Kiarostami, and basically they changed this wrong vision that people had about Kurdistan.
که سمیرا مخملباف
and Samira Makhmalbaf.
پس یکم بزرگتر شدم با دوربین.
So I basically grew up with the camera and became more visible.
سطحی نگاه نکردم به معشوقم.
And then I was not superficial anymore about what I was interested in.
دیپتر رفتم که بتونم از این ابزار استفاده کنم.
And I basically got deeper into how to use this tool that I have.
Before saying anything about my topic, I should say I'm not a filmmaker, I'm not a film critic, and I'm not an artist at all. I'm a historian, and I'd like some specific points about cinema and television, especially the cultural and social matters and about content. This is part of the project I'm doing at the moment, this short talk, and obviously it's very brief and cannot go to details. Basically it's about the image and the stereotype of the Iranians abroad, expatriates Iranians outside Iran, on Iranian cinema and television making by support of the government or directly made by government organizations, specifically television and Ministry of Islamic Guidance. It is a very sensitive issue I don't want to talk about the sensitivity of that, but just give you an example. Last year, I wrote an article for a magazine in Iran called Nigah Panjshanbe. It's a very small size magazine, sort of copy of Kitab Hafte of Shamlu and others in 60s and 70s. The article was called Maghzub al-Tarafain or Marzi al-Tarafain. It's about people, scholars or researchers who are working outside Iran and go to Iran and have connection to Iran, cultural connections, educational connection, and their problems. And that based on my own experience. People call you in Iran, you're traitors, you're anti-revolutionary, you're spy, and outside Iran, because you are going to Iran, they call you lobbyist of the regime, and so on.
کم کم جشن خصوصی خانه سینما تبدیل میشه به یکی از مهمترین اتفاقات سینمای ایران.
And then gradually this private gathering that they had in House of Cinema became one of the major movie events in Iran.
و این البته در حالیه که جشن دولتی سینما که به فستیوال فجر معروفه هم کماکان به کار خودش ادامه میده، ولی من فکر میکنم پرستیژ سینماگرایی که در جشن خانه سینما فیلم‌هاشون دیده میشد خیلی به مرور بالاتر.
And although this government sponsored Fajr festival continues to exist in Iran, but the movies which were shown in House of Cinema in Iran, they were basically presented a more prestigious way of basically communicating with the public.
خانه سینما کم کم بزرگتر میشه و بخش‌های دیگه‌ای بهش اضافه میشه مثل سینمای مستند، انیمیشن و انیمیشن.
So House of Cinema basically continued to develop, and then some other subsidiaries joined, like for example the animation and then documentary movies.
و در واقع سینماگرا هر کدوم صنف خودشون رو پیدا میکنن، مثل صنف بازیگرا، صنف کارگردان‌ها و
And all the groups basically formed their own syndicate. Let's say syndicate of the players, actors, of movie makers, etc.
اینو شاید بعد بگم که با وجود اینکه این صنف کم کم تشکیل شد، این صنف‌ها برای سینماگرا، اما خیلی به سختی میتونستن بهش تکیه کنن، برای اینکه به هر حال در واقع دولت تا حد زیادی روش نظارت داره و محدودش میکنه، اما به هر حال تکیه‌گاهی شد برای کسایی که دارن کار سینما میکنن.
Also it provided try to provide some support for the Iranian movie makers. Still, the control by the government was there, creating some troubles.
اما خب در سالهای اخیر مثل همه اتفاقای دیگه که تحت تاثیر دولت جدید قرار گرفته، خانه سینما و وضعیت سینمایی که سعی داره مستقل باشه هم کمی دگرگون شد.
As in the recent years, when things basically got a bit worse, and government tried to impose its control all aspects of life, so the House of Cinema faced with new challenges.
بعد از روی کار آمدن آقای احمدی نژاد رئیس جمهور جدید، فیلمایی که در واقع یک کلمه جدیدی باب شد به نام سیاه‌نمایی، که این مربوط میشه به فیلمایی که دست میذارن روی نقاط حساس جامعه یا چیزهایی که به هر حال دولت روش حساسه و نمیخواد مطرح بشه.
And as Ahmadinejad took office, basically they came with a new expression which is called basically like a blackening thing. This means that showing a like Iranian society in a bad way. That they came with this expression to show that how they kind of impose this Iranian independent cinema.
و همزمان دولت آقای احمدی نژاد تصمیم میگیره یک تشکل دیگه‌ای درست کنه به اسم شورای عالی سینما و اعلام میکنن که خودشون ریاست شورای عالی سینما رو بر عهده میگیرن.
And Ahmadinejad decided basically to create another parallel institution that they call it like Supreme Council of Movies, something like that, and he became like the chief of that institution himself.
خب بعد از اینجا کم کم جنگ کوچیکی بین سینماگرایی که فکر میکنن سعی دارن مستقل باشن شروع میشه با سینماگرانی که دوستان نزدیک دولت هستن و آقای احمدی.
So this created basically a tension between those real independent movie makers and those who try basically to approach this other institution which was basically sponsored by the government.
این ترتیب تقریبا کمی بیش از یک سال پیش فعالیت‌های خانه سینما به حالت تعلیق در میاد.
And around 1 year ago, then basically the activities of the House of Cinema was stopped.
و خب این چیزیه که بیشتر از یه ساله که سینمای ایران رو درگیر کرده، سینماگرای مستقل و مستندسازها رو.
And this is a trouble which has been created for Iranian independent movie makers for around 1 year.
The issue that I'm going to talk about is already addressed by other speakers, especially Dr. NAFICY, Professor DABASHI, MOHSEN MAKHMALBAF, and also ZAHRA. But I'm going to shed a new light on a special movement in Iranian cinema which has been recently raised, and I'm going to categorize it as a movement, arguably a remarkable movement in Iranian cinema, which is called underground cinema. I wanted to show you some clips from some underground movies, especially the one that Bahman made. No one knows about the Persian cats, but unfortunately Eirik just informed me that there's no enough time to do that. So I'm going to my paper straight away. First of all, I need to define the word, the term underground, which is a part of underground art. Underground cinema is a part of underground arts in general, and it's an experimental culture which is not dictated by popular taste or demands, and can be regarded as a progressive and avant-garde movement in the world. In film theory, the term underground film, coined by the American influential film critic Emanuel Farber, refers to a radical form of cinema that is out of the mainstream, either in its style, genre, or financing. It can also be used to refer to the more countercultural fringe of independent cinema. The term has developed as a metaphorical reference to a clandestine and subversive culture beneath the legitimate and official media. But in Iranian culture, the term refers to a movement that exists as a consequence of Iranian filmmakers' civil disobedience and their refusal to adhere to the rules dictated by the Iranian government. The term would embrace a body of work that represents a margin of Iranian cinema which is being made without the required authorization, financial, or technical support from the government. Like other forms of non-mainstream or underground artistic activity, underground cinema has become a powerful trend in Iranian cinema sphere, especially after taking power of the extremist conservative government. While in America, underground cinema was a reaction of countercultural filmmakers towards the dominance of the mainstream and Hollywood cinema, in Iran it is a response to the harsh censorship of the Ministry of Culture and Islamic Guidance on Iranian cinema, an institution which is in charge of regulation and censoring art, cinema, and literature in Iran. So it is considered an illegal activity, and the deterrents are severe. So arguably a direct consequence of state censorship in Iran has been the formation and development of underground filmmaking in recent years. In the past few years, there has been an increase of restrictions and pressure on Iranian filmmakers, and it's almost unprecedented. Censorship and banning have abundant. In addition, the system itself is slow and prone to arbitrarily changing the decisions about a certain film's permissibility. This frustrating situation has caused disillusion and despair among the filmmakers and constricted their creative energy, with the filmmaker placing much effort into circumventing restrictions or having to abandon their projects. Zahra addressed this issue in her lecture. Throughout the history of post-revolutionary Iranian cinema, there has always been a distinction made between filmmakers who are with the government call them khodi, or insiders, and those who are not khodi, or outsiders. That is, who are serve or affiliated with the government, and the independent filmmakers who refuse to work within the framework of the government. Hence, the policies and restrictions imposed on filmmaking in Iran are based on this, attempts made to quench and immobilize freedom of expression, and such independent artistic movements in Iran are not a new phenomenon.
Example. So the first thing is to realize that censorship is something integral to the art of cinema. Second, I want to open the frame, as it were, to talk about Panahi in the larger context of what is happening to Iranian cinema, particularly with the difficulties that have landed Panahi in now effectively under house arrest, which he has turned around. As it were, the lemon of censorship has been turned into a lemonade of two films that he has made. One is This Is Not a Film. They tell him you can't make a film. He makes a film and calls it This Is Not a Film, and goes around the world. The second is the most recent that we were supposed to watch yesterday here, but hopefully we'll see it soon. The other aspect of the paradox of evident censorship is that, in fact, Panahi is now more known, more watched, more globally celebrated today by virtue of successive film festivals that around the world, people, Iranians, non-Iranians, keep making about Panahi. So it's a no-win situation for dictatorship and for tyranny. It is impossible to put 75 million human beings, the most talented in the world, and tell them not to make films, not to compose poetry, and so forth. But the fact of the matter is that because of the incessant censorship that has been imposed in the Iranian cinema, many of our most gifted filmmakers, not only because of the Islamic Republic, but even before that, they have been subject to exile. Right now, exile in a very generic sense, namely they are out of their habitat. Right now, among ourselves, we are in the presence of two great Iranian filmmakers who no longer live and make film in Iran, despite the fact that they made their career inside Iran. MOHSEN MAKHMALBAF has been living outside Iran for years. BAHMAN GHOBADI now lives in fact in Iraq, and has made his last film in Turkey. Long before they left, another great master of Iranian cinema, Amir Naderi, left the country with bitterness and anger, and decided to live in New York, and made New York his home, and has made 4 successive films in New York, and now has moved to Japan, and has made his first feature film in Japan. He is bitter and angry about Iran, but he follows the Iranian event with meticulous closeness, and every once in a while he calls me from Tokyo and he says, just name some Persian foods for me. And I said, Qurma sabzi, and he has ecstasy. Just the name of Qurma sabzi, or any other dish. Then simultaneously with him, or just after him, Parviz Jahed also has left Iran with bitterness and anger, and living in California. Reza Allamzadeh was also mentioned, one of the greatest documentary filmmakers of our time. Susan Taslimi, who just described herself, but she's too modest to tell you that outside Iran she has not only mastered the Swedish language, but has actually made a career for herself as, quote-unquote, a Swedish filmmaker. This is not strange. The fact is that another great Iranian filmmaker, Sohrab Shahidsaleh, became an eminent figure in German New Wave after his contribution to Iranian cinema. He has made some fantastic films in German. Another great Iranian filmmaker, Bahram Bezari, has left Iran with bitterness and anger, partially because of his being a member of the Baha'i faith, despite the fact that the Catholicity of his learning and knowledge and mastery of Iranian culture has nothing to do with being Muslim or Baha'i or Christian or anything else. Now lives in California, but has not made any film, has stayed away from a camera, and is busy with his scholarship. He's one of our greatest scholars of performing arts, and has just finished a book, and also he does theater, but not cinema. The names are endless. Ebrahimi Golestan, another great Iranian filmmaker, left Iran for years. He lives in the suburb of London. Again, follows Iranian cinema very closely, and he is one of the founding fathers. We also have a founding mother of Iranian cinema named Furugh Farrokhzad, and her The House is Black is the defining moment of Iranian cinema. Iranian cinema is the future, the democratic and anti-patriarchal future that we hope for the rest of our society. Most recently, going from Ebrahimi Golestan, the oldest, to the youngest, Asghar Farhadi, whose movie Separation won a global Oscar, and before that Golden Globe, has just finished the film and submitted to Cannes, a film that he has made in Paris. Not to forget one of the pioneers of Iranian cinema, Arvi Ovanesian, whose film Cheshme was a defining moment of Iranian cinema in the 1970s. For years now he lives in Paris. He's a magnificent scholar of Armenian theater, and he has produced voluminously on Armenian theater. Now, all of this is simply to complicate that the issue that we are facing with Jafar Panahi, an Iranian filmmaker who now lives in Iran but cannot make film freely. I mean, if you look at a Circle or any other of Jafar Panahi's films, you see how embedded in his society is. Amir Naderi has an expression because of the longevity of the work that he has done, particularly with urban cinema. Much of the films that come outside Iran are, by choice of the directors for varieties of reasons, are about rural Iran. As my friend and colleague HAMID NAFICY mentioned, what we see outside Iran is only an aspect of Iranian cinema. There is a fantastic urban cinema, the samples of which are, of course, in Amir Naderi, Ebrahimi Golestan, MOHSEN MAKHMALBAF, and many others, Shahid Salis, etc. Is the fact that now is the question of what actually is national cinema that becomes an issue for us to consider. My colleague HAMID NAFICY has already talked about the issue of post-national cinema. Taking off from his observations, I want to complicate the issue with to share a few observations. When we talk about national cinema in the Iranian context or any other context, it doesn't mean that national cinema is nativist, that is preoccupied with Iranian matters, and that world at large has not had an effect on Iranian cinema. Any film that you can watch from Iran or any part of the world has, you can see it on two axes. One are specific historical, societal, cultural aspects of the filmmaker, sort of a vertical line, and one is a horizontal line that connects that filmmaker to the rest of world cinema, great masses of world cinema. There is no Iranian filmmaker whatsoever who grew up making films without having watched masterpieces of world cinema. Provocatively, I have made an argument that Ozu, a Japanese filmmaker, has had more effect on Abbas Kiarostami's cinema than Sohrab Shahid Saleh's poetry.
Vi är alla iranier. De som tycker om den här regimen och accepterar den och är med deras politik är också iranier. Vi som inte gör det, det är också iranier. Precis som man tänker i Norge, det är inte alla som stödjer eran regering. Det gör de inte. En del gör, en del inte gör. Det är det som är problemet i Iran. Vi har en diktatorisk regim. Det har vi inte i Norge. Där har vi det. Ni får gärna stödja den regim. Ni är fria att säga er mening och vad ni tycker. Men vi vill också ha den här friheten att vara emot den regimens politik. Och vi har samma rätt som ni har. Ni tycker om, ni stödjer regimen, det gör vi inte. Det här kallas för demokrati, som jag är för. Ja.
I have amazing hope because I feel so good. I think as soon as possible will be good happen in Iran, and all of the Iranian who is living outside of Iran, they will go back to Iran, and I can continue my works in there, and I have a good hope. And now I think the world is my home. I don't feel I'm in exile now. You know, in the beginning it's like that, but now really I'm comfortable in Norway. Tomorrow, after tomorrow, I will go to London and then go to China. Everything is like my home. Thank you.
Thank you very much.